Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on how to solve MSSP challenges with SOAR. I'm very excited for the presentation we have prepared for you today, discussing how SOAR can help reduce alert overload / response times, even help service providers expand their service portfolio. But before we begin, I want to review two quick housekeeping items. The first of which being today's session is being recorded and will be shared out via email where you can rewatch at your convenience. And secondly, we'll host a Q&A at the end of this presentation. So feel free to use the Zoom control panel at the bottom of your screen to ask those questions at any time. My name is Chris Mitchell, and I'm a marketing manager here at Simplify. And today I am joined by Daniel DeSarens, a senior security solutions architect here at Simplify that specializes and supports our service provider customers. Daniel actually has over a decade of cybersecurity experience, most recently working in the SOC at Ford Motor Company before joining the Simplify team. So excited to have him here today. So the agenda for today's presentation, before we turn things over to Daniel, I want to first set the stage for what you'll be seeing. So starting with current MSSP challenges we're seeing in the market, followed then by the SOAR basics and intro to Simplify. Then we'll put it all together and discuss the benefits of SOAR and how we specifically help MSSPs overcome their unique business challenges. And then we'll turn things over to Daniel to walk us through literally what this looks like in a SOAR product and in Simplify. And then we'll save some time at the end, as mentioned, for Q&A. So obviously, if you're attending this webinar, you are likely familiar with these service provider challenges, so I'll keep this brief. But the way we like to approach this at Simplify is, splitting MSSP challenges into two sort of sections, one being the internal security operations challenges that every SOC faces, as well as the business level objectives that are unique to MSSPs. So starting with the security operations challenges, the most common being alert fatigue. The average organization now uses over 26 different security solutions that often each generate their own set of alerts. Plus, with the ever-growing number of threats, analysts are constantly trying to remain afloat in a sea of alerts. And this is only exacerbated by service providers needing to manage the alerts of multiple complex and diverse customer environments. And now try manually investigating and responding to all of these alerts. Analysts are spending too much of their precious time on repetitive and mundane activities and could even, and sometimes often, waste time investigating separate alerts that were all part of one threat and one attack. And responding to all of these alerts and doing the day-to-day mundane activities, this all often leads to burnout. And when you couple that with the well-documented talent shortage in the industry, there's no wonder that analyst turnover can be a serious internal security operations challenge. But at the end of the day, time is the most important factor MSSPs must manage in order to quickly identify and respond to customer risk. And SOAR specifically enables MSSPs to rapidly detect and remediate threats in your customers' environments. So moving on to the unique challenges to MSSP and their business objectives. This includes, how to differentiate yourself in a crowded market and adapt and evolve your security service offerings. It includes how do you address the latest trends and customer requirements better than anyone else? How do you handle varying customer maturity levels? How do you leverage existing customer security technology stacks? The need to scale your business while maintaining sustainable margins with a growing customer base. That's going to lead to an increase in the need for more storage, processing, analysts, and more. So while many of you probably understand how SOAR can address the internal security operations challenges that happen within the SOC that we just mentioned, SOAR and Simplify are actually perfectly situated to then help with these business objectives as well. So an intro to SOAR and Simplify. According to Gartner, SOAR refers to technologies that enable organizations to collect inputs monitored by the security operations team, where incident analysis and triage can be performed by leveraging a combination of human and machine power, standardizing all incident response activities. So from there, the basics of SOAR stem from these three solutions: an incident response platform, orchestration and automation, and TIP. With SOAR, you can now digest alerts, enrich and visualize threats, integrate and automate workflows and playbooks, and manage cases end to end from a single platform. So how that literally works, and more specifically here at Simplify, to address the aforementioned challenges, Simplify security operation, or with Simplify, security operations teams finally have that single workbench that allows them to get all of their work done from a single platform, where you can now ingest alerts from all of your customers' disparate security tools and correlate these related alerts into a single threat-centric case management system. You can then make all of these tools that you have invested in work together and create consistent automated response processes that dramatically decrease your response times. And with Simplify, your limited security talent can now spend their time on higher value work as opposed to the repetitive and mundane activities, allowing you to effectively respond to threats at scale. And finally, because all security operations activities are now being captured in this single platform, you can begin to leverage this theater to track and measure your security operations, identifying areas for improvement, and having tangible KPIs that you can report on and share with key stakeholders for your end customers. So specifically at Simplify, as a company, we like to say we are rooted in security operations, and like to say that we were born in the SOC. Our company was founded by security operations experts who worked in a government SOC, then moved on to train dozens and dozens of both military and civilian SOCs from around the world. They founded the company and developed Simplify based on their experiences and everything that security operations teams need to succeed. We're the leading independent security operations platform, and we're trusted by the biggest and best enterprises and MSSPs from around the world. Many of the Fortune 500 companies and Gartner Magic Quadrant MSSPs trust Simplify as their platform to run their security operations day in and day out. And this is clearly reflected in our Gartner Peer Insights reviews, where we're the #1 rated SOAR platform. And Gartner themselves even acknowledge that SOAR plays an essential role in helping security service providers provide services that include remote response. And the future of most enterprise SOCs truly is hybrid, and SOAR can help bridge that gap between service provider and end customer. And Daniel will show you that in just a few seconds. Now, so what? How do we put this together, and what are the actual benefits that you can experience? So what MSSPs experience when it comes to using SOAR and specifically Simplify, you can now increase margins by automating commodity tier 1 activities and driving efficiency across your security operations. You can take on more business and easily support heterogeneous customer environments without the need for in-house experts for every single technology that your customers use. You can more effectively demonstrate value to and collaborate with your end customers, providing instant visibility into SOC metrics with our embedded business intelligence, and interact throughout the entire incident lifecycle from initial reporting to final resolution with our collaboration features. And honestly, I could go on, but instead of simply talking about the benefits that you can experience with SOAR, I'm actually going to hand things over to Daniel so you can tangibly see what this looks like within the platform and better understand how SOAR can help revolutionize your company. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen and let Daniel take it from here.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Let me go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started here. So just to start with, I wanted to give a brief overview of how Simplify works, and then we'll dive into some of the things that we can help MSSPs kind of differentiate their offering in essence for their customers. And so just initially when we're ingesting information, we're going to be connecting up into your alerting sources. And when I say alerting sources, I'm talking about things like your SIM, an EDR tool, maybe an email inbox. But we're going to be connecting up into those sources, and we're going to be ingesting that information in and creating an alert. Now, with Simplify, we can support all the different models that you might be running in, whether it's a shared instance or if it's a SIM that you're offering to your customers, or even if you're working with a customer's on-prem instance or even their cloud instance. We can work with all of that to get it all into Simplify in one spot, utilizing the multi-tenancy within the tool to be really to separate, if you will, to identify each of the different customers, either dynamically or statically. And what that would look like inside the Simplify tool is that when we ingest that alert, it creates the alert here. We're then going to parse out what we call our entities, but these are your indicators that are in the solution, that are inside of that alert. Things like your hash, your URLs, your IP addresses, those types of things are going to become entities. And then we are going to look inside Simplify to see if there's any other relationships with alerts that are already in the system right now for that environment. So, we use that term environment to determine to identify a customer or a tenant. And so we're looking inside the customer's environment, looking for relationships within with that alert, and then we're going to pull them together like you're seeing here and place them into one single case if there is a relationship. So that when your analysts are coming into the tool and beginning to work, they're going to be able to see in the case queue all the alerts across all your different tenants or environments inside of the case queue here. And they can filter this down. They can sort it by criticality. They can do a lot of really whatever they'd like to do. But they can see them all here. And then when they start to dive into one of these alerts, they then have context around what's happening, really focusing them on the threat. Now, one of the things that as we are ingesting this information and parsing out the entities and putting them into cases and grouping them together, one of the things that we're doing is we're also attaching that playbook to start to run an automatic workflow that's going to then allow you to get to that answer faster. One of the main goals that we see happen in a lot of different MSSPs is just the idea of supporting your customers and the time that every analyst has in order to work on these cases. And we want to make sure that we're helping you get to the answer faster, so that then the analyst can kind of go on to that next alert and continue working the incidents. But not only that, we're looking to reduce the number of alerts that they're having to investigate, so that you also can kind of start to focus on some of that continuous improvement, making your offering better for your customers, along with providing some better visibility, which I'll get into here in a few minutes. But from an analyst perspective, when they come in here, we want to make sure that they see what's happening. They have that timeline of the events that are when they all happen, and they have the entities like I was talking about earlier. They have those indicators about who's actually involved in this. But then when that playbook starts to run and it gets kicked off, and it's going to start to go out and grab enrichment data and even making decisions, it's almost like you're hitting the fast forward button on this investigation and taking you from the start with nothing to the point where now I have all of this data that I can do some investigation on as a Simplify. Simplify can actually start to perform some analysis of this information, and then output at the end of that processing, whether it be an automated action, a closing of the case, or it could be a creation of a ticket that's going to then get passed over to the customer. Or even if we wanted just to ask a question of the analyst, we can do all of that within this playbook. Because when we start to build out these playbooks, we really look at these playbooks as being not just a series of automation, but the process that you use to perform the investigation for the incident that it's working on. So if in this case, we're looking at a phishing email, working through that process of how I would do that investigation typically, and then kind of working through it to the point where I'm then having to make a decision. And so I'm putting my analysts at the point where they're making a decision rather than having to go and do all of that data gathering type of activities. And so if we just briefly talk about this playbook, you can see here, what we're doing is all of these blue icons have already been ran automatically. And so all up the front here, a lot of times I'll go out and do my enrichment, going out and grabbing data from like a virus total that's going to be like our threat intel. And then as I'm grabbing this data, I can then present the key information up to the analyst in a way of an insight. that's going to give them visibility into what actually is going on within this case, allowing them to make a decision when they are in here doing their investigation as well. So I can grab that threat intelligence, I can grab the user information, whether it's coming from Active Directory or another source. And I also can go out and grab some endpoint information or just kind of do some analysis, but I'm presenting that data up to the analyst so that when they come in here, they have a visibility into the data so that when they get asked the question about would I like to remediate this, or do I want to block this IP, or do I want to block this URL or quarantine the endpoint, when that question is asked as to how I would typically handle this alert, they can make that decision. Or if it's a matter of just the recommendation that you are then passing over to the customer, whether that's via an email or a ticket, that can be done, and you can make the decision as to which one you want to pass over to them. Now, the system can certainly make some of these decisions for you, and we actually are doing some of that right off the bat here. Once I have my enrichment, I can make decision statements on, maybe in this specific case, if I'm looking at an email, and I've analyzed all of the entities. I've analyzed all the links. I've analyzed all the hashes and the IPs and URLs, everything that's inside this email, and it all comes back to be clean. Well, then maybe I can just go ahead and close out that alert. And I don't really need to spend my analyst's time on handling that alert, because I can identify that it's not malicious automatically. In the process that we typically would have taken, I've already done that automatically. So that I'm then focusing my analyst not on all of these, in essence, false positives, but I'm focusing the analyst on the things that really matter, the alerts that are critical, that require their attention. And so then they can come in here and actually work this case and actually take an action and make decision and pass it over to the customer. Now, when it comes to our playbooks and working with the different integrations and building these out, we do have a library of information that can be utilized to do this, whether it's templated playbooks or actually playbooks out of the box that you can use to deploy. We have some of these that you can use, like our phishing use case here. We call them use cases, because they're not only going to just include your playbook, but they also include a series of integrations, and it's going to walk you through the steps of actually installing this information. And then once you've installed it, then you can start to build it out. You'll also have a library of information for the integrations themselves, and so you can come in here and download any integration that you may need. So in that use case, you might have seen URL scan IO, and maybe that's not a tool that you use. Maybe you use something different. That's okay. You can still deploy that use case, and then you just come over into this section and download the tool that you want. And then from there, we can then dive into the playbook section and actually do some of that customization, where we're going to take that playbook and we're going to customize it to really meet my needs. So whether I'm using an automatic triage block, which is a series of actions that has some actions in here already predefined, or if I'm going to actually go into my actions and pull in something new, customizing these playbooks to meet your needs and the way that you handle cases is very, very easy, just as far as a drag and drop, closing out actions that are in there that you don't want, adding new ones that you're going to be utilizing, kind of tweaking the playbook, if you will, to meet the process that you actually work through to handle incidents. And so it makes it very easy. One of the things that, as we've worked through the tool, I'll kind of point out here as well, is that even playbooks are multi-tenant as well. So I can come in here and actually build out a specific playbook for a customer if I wanted to, or I could have it run on all customers and dynamically decide the information that's being pulled from that environment. And so if I have a tool, like for instance, part of my base offering might be something like providing threat intelligence and maybe doing some SIM type of things as well, where I'm ingesting the customer's data into a shared instance that then I am providing the detections, and I'm actually looking at the data and then passing over the tier 3 activity to the customer. I can perform that maybe with this all environments thing, and it'll dynamically pull from each of the customers, maybe their EDR tool if you have one over there, an on-prem AV solution that you may have to interact with, or if you have a SIM that's maybe not your shared instance, but they also have like an Elasticsearch somewhere that you may need to search some data for as well to gather some enrichment. You can perform all of that, and you can utilize our playbooks to be either specific for that environment, or I can use one that's going to be for all environments. That's just a generic playbook that's for all of your customers. And so with that, I wanted to show kind of then one of the challenges I think that with a multi-tenant or a managed service for the customer side is that they lose some visibility when they go and kind of transition into that managed service. And so with that, Simplify has kind of come to address that issue of visibility by providing you the ability to offer your customers a few different types of access into the solution. And so when you look at Simplify, I've been showing you what data we're collecting and how we would perform automated actions. But a lot of times, some of those actions you can't perform, and you need to pass them over to the customer. They may need to see that. You may need to get approval, or maybe they just want to see what's going on. How long is it taking you to access those things? Well, we have solved those with a couple different ways. One of them being our viewer access into Simplify. You can provide your customers access into dashboards and reports. And from the dashboards perspective, you're going to be able to give them information related to the top alerts that are coming in. You can see the different products that are being ingested into Simplify. But I think one of the important ones, especially when we're looking at customers' data, is this idea of what types of cases am I seeing? How many incidents have I identified? Because I think a lot of times, and then also then how long is it taking me? Because I think a lot of times what happens is that you may see 29, 26 alerts, or maybe more than that, alerts a day that you're investigating as an MSSP, but the customer may only see a couple of incidents that come through. And so they ultimately start to wonder, like, okay, so what are you doing? Well, this is ultimately then showing them, this is exactly what we're seeing. This is what we're investigating and performing activities. This is the value that we are adding to you, that you're not having to actually do all this investigation. And our dashboards are filterable, so I can look at like I said earlier with the multi-tenancy, I can even drill down into a specific environment. And when you're providing this access to your customer, you're only giving them access to their data. So you're only giving them access to their environment, so that they only see the dashboard for their environment here. And so they can see that information about how many cases, how many of them are incidents, and those types of things. But they also can start to see information around how long is it taking us to get to a specific stage in that process, whether it's mean time to triage or mean time to response or mean time to investigation, whatever you want to use there. But that mean time to detection or response can be shown here so that the customer gets an idea of what that looks like and how long is it taking you to respond to cases. So this gives you that high level perspective, and you can certainly customize this. These are widget based, but I think one of the next things that the customer typically wants to be able to see is that monthly report, or they want to be able to see information about how are we doing as far as a posture is concerned, and we can also provide that within our advanced reporting, which is powered by Tableau. And so what you're seeing here is a report that's being generated automatically, and it's dynamic. And so that when I provide access to this to my customer, they not only can see the data, similar to what I was showing with the dashboard, is they can see the number of cases that are coming in and the incidents that are here. They can also see where they're at as far as criticality and the distribution within the stages. But one of the cool things with this is because it's a dynamic report, I can also start to drill down into information that might be interesting to me. So when your customer comes in here and starts to look at this data, they may say, you know what, I see a lot of failed logins in the 73% that don't have an SLA. Well, why is that? And so they can drill into that and start to look at that. And maybe they can look at it over time and realize, oh, you know what, it's actually going down from what we had earlier this month. That's a good sign. So they can start to drill into this and be able to get additional insight into actually what's going on within their organization by just being able to interface or interact with a dynamic report that's going to give them information that's really interesting to them. Now, this can be also given as a static report as well, but I think the dynamic feature is very, very interesting for your customers. And so that's that first level of access, giving them the access to be able to start to view and see information and things that are going on within their SOC. The second level of access you can provide them is on top of this idea of dashboards and reports, we can start to provide them access into what we call our collaborator portal. And what that is that as I'm going through a workflow, as I'm working through kind of a phishing email and I've noticed a URL that's bad and I really need to block that in their firewall, or I need to do something, or I found a malware detected on an endpoint and I'd like to quarantine that endpoint. you don't always have access to do that automatically. You need to go out and get approval for that. Well, what Simplify is offering is this ability to pass over that command, if you will, or that action to the customer inside the collaborator portal, so that when they come in here, they can see their pending actions, and then they can come over here and actually respond to it. And what we're giving you the ability to do is say, you know what, I understand that you want to be able to approve or decline or do whatever with this action. Well, you can go ahead and do that. And it kind of removes your analyst from having to watch that ticket and then respond to it via the action that was approved or declined. What you're giving the customer the ability to do is just come in here and actually interface directly with the playbook and just say yes or no. Do you want to block this or not? Do you want to quarantine this endpoint or not? And if they say no, then it'll just go down the path within the playbook of that no route rather than the yes and quarantining the endpoint. If they say yes, it'll automatically go and quarantine the endpoint. And it doesn't require the time of the analyst to come into this case, see what the response of the customer was, and then actually take action. And so it's giving the customer that ability to interface directly with the case. But maybe what you're showing here as far as the question you're asking isn't quite enough information, and you wanted to give them a little bit more detail. Well, I can click on this view case and take them into the case itself and give them information around the case and what's going on. And that this can be something that I can configure for the customer that gives them information that's only for them. It's like, so this is widget based off of their role as a customer. You can say, well, I want to show them the description. I want to show them where it's at in the MITRE mapping here, the MITRE ATT&CK mapping. I want to give them that response and give them some additional details. I can do that within this case here, and it's customized to their view and what you want them to see. And so you can give them a lot of context around the question that you're asking and the response that you're hoping to get to, whether it be a yes or a no. You're ultimately providing them that recommendation, expecting them to go and perform that action. And so those are the two levels of access you can provide. And then with the Simplify instance being multi-tenant, I can then also start to provide some SOC augmentation or giving them full access into the platform to not only see dashboards and reports, or even just responding to specific actions. I can also start to actually provide them access into the cases and only their cases, and allow them to work alongside of me. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it back over to Chris for some questions. But if there's any questions, go ahead and we'll take them at this point. So Chris.
Awesome. Thank you, Daniel. So yes, reminder, you can use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen to ask those questions. But the first of which is, can you connect to customer on-prem tools?
Yeah, sure. And the answer to that question is actually yes. We have something we call a remote agent, and it's not an agent that would go on every single device. It's really an agent or a device that would go internal to the customer's environment. And what that agent allows us to do is connect to the on-prem solutions in a secure way. So it's not having to open up firewall rules into the customer's environment, because that agent is actually connecting outbound to our Simplify instance or to wherever you've hosted it. So it gives you that ability to actually take action on something like a McAfee EPO that's on-prem, or even like going through an Elasticsearch instance and performing those actions to search. It's giving you access to those tools that you wouldn't have typically had access to without having some sort of VPN tunnel or something like that opened up. So the answer is yes.
Cool. Thanks, Daniel. And actually, maybe I'll have you share your screen again, as the next question is about literally just asking what the command center is and how it operates.
Yeah, sure. I can go ahead and quickly share my screen one more time. So what Command Center is a way for you to manage cases that are going to include more than maybe just your SOC. It might want to include actually the customer as well. And so if I had an incident like this one come in and I'm working it and I realize that I need to actually include the customer in the investigation, in the process of actually taking care of this, I can transfer this into what we call our Command Center module, which is our incident response module. I can transfer that into Command Center and then work the case within the Command Center module. And what this is really doing is it's pulling it out of the weeds a little bit and giving you some high-level context about the incident, which is what you're seeing here as far as description is concerned. You're also seeing what we're doing to solve it. But when it comes into here, I can manage those collaborators, like I said before, where it's you as the SOC. It could also be your customer or even somebody external to both you and the customer. I can pull them all in here and pull them into this workstation area where they're taking action. They're doing status assessments on what's actually going on within the incident. They're assigning tasks to individuals to go and complete. They may be adding evidence into one spot rather than utilizing email or Slack or whatever to communicate all this evidence. They're putting it all up into the command center, all while making decisions and adding facts and setting up reminders, as well as just having some of that real-time chat functionality with the people that are inside this incident. And so it gives you a way of just pulling everything together into one spot.
Awesome. Thank you again, Daniel. So with that, we are coming up on the half hour. So to wrap things up, I would like to quickly just highlight the Simplify community. It is a free edition of our SOAR solution. So if you liked what you saw today and you want to get your hands on it and start messing around, you can. You do still have access to the marketplace that Daniel showed you during the demo. So you can go from zero to hero with ready to deploy use cases like our phishing use case, where it comes pre-built with the integrations you need, the playbooks you need, step-by-step instructions, and even an informational video. And in addition to literally using our community edition of the platform, there is also our Slack community, where you can join a number of your security operations peers and discuss SOAR along with any other topics of interest to you. So to do so, you can go to simplify.co/community and get started there. So thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoy the rest of your days. We sincerely appreciate you taking the time to meet with us today. And if you do have any additional questions, please don't hesitate to reach out.